Okay, here we go. Another live stream. Some free tarot readings today. Hi, Saab. Hope you're doing well too. I am doing just fine. Thank you. Let me set up. I'm going to light a candle. I've got my Black Cat Crystal Journey candle here. It's scented, and I'm not sure. I smell cloves. I think it may have something else, and it doesn't say what it is, but I smell cloves. So you've got that there. And let me light some. Well, let's see. Why don't I open my cards and then I'll light some Palo Santo. I'm using my Gay Marseille deck by Charlie Claire Burgess. All right, let's get some smoke going. Hi, everybody. Hi, Rose, Stormborn. For anyone who might be new, my name is Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. I'm doing some free live readings today. I have some exciting news. I think it's exciting. Some of you might think it's exciting. I've decided to start offering private readings. I'll still continue to do the free live readings, but if you are interested in a paid private reading, you can check the link in the video description for more information. That smells so good. Clove and Palo Santo, and I've got a cup of or a mug rather, of tea here. This is, hibiscus tea. Okay, let me get my paper, and let's start putting a list together. Rose will be first. Followed by Stormborn. Followed by Sob. Followed by Cat Goddess. Okay, so those will be our first 4. Rose, Stormborn, Sob, and Cat Goddess. Hibiscus tea is good. I like it. This one in particular is the Tazo Passion Tea. So it's not only hibiscus, it's got some other things in there too. I can't remember what. But I love hibiscus. I was in Mexico around New Year's and had hibiscus agua fresca de Jamaica. Delicious, really delicious. I love the color. This deep red, almost fuchsia kind of pink color. Really like it. And, as much as I love caffeine, I also love to have beverage options which are not caffeinated. I'm fairly sensitive to caffeine, and so I need to be careful about how much I have. Okay, so Rose, if you would care to post your question, I can do a reading for you. When will I meet my future spouse? Okay. So, for timing questions, what I like to do generally is lay out 3 cards to represent a predefined period of time, right? And then 3 more cards to define a further period of time, and so on and so forth. Um, with that said, with a big question like this, when will I meet my future spouse? Um, we have to consider that we might need to look quite a ways into the future, right? Maybe the cards we lay down will clearly indicate it. But I do find that the further into the future we go, the less accurate it will be. So I'm happy to read for this question. I'll read for any question, well, just about any question you guys have. Uh, but I just want to preface it sort of by saying that, like, if we're looking more than a year in the future, um, we can't guarantee that it's going to be very accurate, right? And that's only because uh, tarot readings, like life and everything else, are subject to change, right? So, what I could do is lay down 3 cards, like for the next year, and then we could do another 3 for the year after that. If that seems about right, and we'll go from there. And there are certain combinations or patterns that I'll be looking for that will clearly indicate a positive sort of answer to the question. And so we'll look for those cards. Okay, let's do it. So let's start with this year, like between today and the next 12 months. Let's see what we get. All right, first 3 cards. 5 coins, the moon, and 5 cups. So, with fives, we've clearly got 5 coins turning into 5 cups, and so I would see here as, like, ideas and whatever's important to you, bringing you or turning into something that brings you pleasure, and that this transformation happens via the moon, meaning that it happens through a process of maybe not seeing things really clearly, but then working it out. But I wouldn't say that this is saying, you're meeting your future spouse, right? Um, although these cards could indicate that you will have a romantic relationship with someone and that relationship will be very it may start by kind of destabilizing your mind, but it will, turn out to bring a whole lot of pleasure to you, emotional and embodied too. think, with the 5. So let's see, this is 2026. So let's go next year, like 2027, see what we get. Death. Ooh, oh, 2 cups and the Wheel of Fortune. Hmm. So Death, 2 cups, and the Wheel of Fortune, you see the way that the figure of death is aiming its scythe at the 2 cups, creating a Wheel of Fortune situation, and so here I read death, like, as putting an end to something, as stopping something, and what is it putting an end to? Well, it's putting an end to an I think this would be a new relationship. If it's not a new relationship that comes to you then, it will be, some some deeply fulfilling emotional exchange with someone, right? So it could be a friendship, it doesn't have to be a relationship. Uh, so, is it possible that this year you will meet someone and then in 2027 that relationship may come to an end, which is going to put you back into, like, getting back on the horse again? You know how they what do they say? When you fall off the horse, get right back on it, right? And so that's how I would read the Wheel of Fortune situation, right? Like the cycle completing and turning and coming back, again. Okay, so let's do 1 more year and see what we get. Queen of Swords, 3 coins, Page of Coins, and they're both of the court cards, the Queen of Swords and Page, are facing to the left, so I wanna see what this thing is that the Queen of Swords is looking at, and the Page of Coins might see too. 8 swords. So, um, I think it makes the most sense here that you are showing up as the Queen of Swords. There is another person showing up as Page of Coins, but the thing is, between you, are 3 coins. So between you, is, ideas or something that's important, but not necessarily love, right? It might be a more practical kind of relationship, and both of you are looking in the direction of 8 swords, which I would read as a couple of possible things. The the people around you, the other people around you may not be conducive or may not create the right kind of atmosphere, for you to turn this into anything. Right? Like, there may be, circumstances or people around you who are not at all helping the situation in sort of getting the 2 of you to see eye to eye. So, let me go back to your question because I do think the most important thing to ask is or to answer is the exact question that you asked, and with the cards that I've drawn, I can't give a complete answer to the question because I am gonna stop here. I pulled 10 cards, and I'm gonna put a limit on it at that point. Um, it is I do think there's going to be someone in 2027, right? Here's 2026, here's 2027, and the 2 of Cups would indicate the potential beginnings of a relationship for someone who could end up being a spouse, and so you see like, the 2 little rings there, so there is potential there, but seeing it next to the Death card, indicates that, like, it's something puts an end to it, right? And looking ahead into the further cards in 2028, I think it's likely has to do with this Eight of Swords, which can indicate either other people around you putting an end to it, uh, or it can sometimes also mean, especially if it were the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, um, like negative thoughts, self-doubt, getting in one's own way, right? So, those are the things that I would, say to answer the question. It's possible that it's happening in 2027, but something's getting in the way of it. You're welcome, Rose. Okay, so Stormborn is next on my list. Okay. All right, so sounds like Stormborn found potentially a solution to their childcare issue. So Stormborn asks, would Andresa or Larissa be a better fit as an au pair or nanny for my family? Okay. So, for a question like this, what I'll do is I'll lay down 3 cards to represent each of these people. So the first 3 cards will, tell us something about Andresa, and the second 3 cards will tell us something about Larissa, and I may pull additional cards as we go, um, depending on what is warranted by the cards that pop up. So that's what I'll do. I'll say hi to everyone. I'm Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. Doing some free readings today. Take a look at the video description, pinned chat message to see how you can request a reading. And I've decided to start offering paid private readings. If you're interested in that, you can check the video description for the link to book one. Okay, so would Andresa or Larissa be a best fit au pair for Stormborn's family? First 3 cards or first set of cards are for Andresa, second 3 for Larissa. Okay, so for Andresa, the Sun, 4 batons, and 5 coins. That's for Andresa. So this is indicating someone who is friendly and interested in a balanced, symmetrical relationship. We see more balance with 4 of batons. This is, someone whose work would be steady, right? I would imagine this is someone who is dependable, right? Uh, and then 5 coins, and so the 5 coins can indicate that they have, um, plenty of physical energy, right? It could also indicate if we compare the number of coins to the number of batons, we might think that, like, you pay 5 coins and you get 4 units of work out of that, right? So there might be a little feeling that, even though this person is friendly and, sees the situation well and is dependable, you might feel like you're paying a little bit more, than maybe you'd like. So that is Andresa. For Larissa, we've got 2 batons, page of coins, the page of wands, and I'm gonna pull another card to see what the page of wands is looking at. 10 batons. So the pages here make me think of, since we're talking about childcare especially, make me think of children, and so we've got 2 children represented in the cards, and they're surrounded by batons, and there's a fairly quick movement upward from 2 batons to 10. So the thing that the cards are indicating about the second person, Larissa, is that, uh, while she's gonna put in the effort, she's gonna put in the work, and, she may become overwhelmed with sort of by the job, by the children. So she's cooperative and she's practical, but as she's having to work with the children, the pressure kind of increases until it gets to a point where maybe it it might feel a little overwhelming for Larissa, right? So, one good point is neither of these people are throwing up red flags, which probably already knew because I assume you have looked into them and, done research and interviewed them and all of that kind of stuff, so that's good. Uh, and so neither of the, there are no swords, there's no sense of deception, there's no sense of any need to be wary of either of these people. Um, the if I were looking at this, seeing the Sun card here, I think is really good. And so I would maybe lean towards that first person because of that, even if I felt like they meant paying a little more, the friendliness which you want with children, right? I mean, you also want someone who's dependable, but this person is dependable given the 4 of Cons here. So, like, friendly and dependable, even if you're sort of paying a little more for it, that sounds pretty good to me. The worry I would maybe have with the second person, Larissa, is burnout, right? That taking care of the kids fairly quickly, leads to too much, like, too much on this person's plate. It's a little heavy. Like, I do think this person can do the job, but they might feel more pressured about it, um, like more strain about it, the first person, Andresa, would feel. So, obviously, you need to make your own, um, choices and your own decisions, and this is your own decision, it's up to you, but those are some things to sort of think about and consider, to sort of throw something into the mix when you're really not sure what to choose. This is a what I do for myself all the time. I have 2 options. In fact, I did it just this morning. Uh, I had a quick choice to make, and I threw down, some playing cards, and I said, "Okay, here's option 1, what would happen? 3 cards. Here's option 2, what would happen? 3 cards." And I chose the option that indicated the better story, the better narrative based on what I want, based on what I'm hoping to achieve. So neither of these look bad. Um, yeah. So I'm gonna stick to just 1 question per person today. I will say, because Stormborn asked, "Andreza won't just leave." There's nothing indicated in the 3 cards that came up that Andreza will leave, but we also didn't ask that, and so the way that I read the tarot, is I think that the cards answer exactly the question that you ask, and so while there's nothing to say in the cards that came up that Andreza will just leave, that also isn't the question we asked, right? So to get more clarity on that, I think you need, um, to read more cards. But for today, I'm gonna stick to 1 question per person just to be fair to the other people who are on the list. But in future, I would be happy to, of course, read for you again, Stormborn. Okay, so let me see, I think some other folks have requested to be added to the list, so let me pull up my list and see what I missed in the chat. Okay, Paradise, I'll add you. Alright, and what was it? Touch of Love. I'm adding you to the bottom of the list. And Cheyenne Brown, I'll add you to the bottom of the list. Okay. So here's the current list. Next up is Sob, and I see your question, Sob. I'll read for you. And then Cat Goddess, and then Paradise. And the way it works, in case you're not familiar, is I'll call your name when it's your turn. And if you're here, you can put your question in the chat. And if you're not here, I may need to skip over you to move on to the next person. Okay, so Saab wants to know, how do men in general view or perceive me? Please and thank you. All right. So we'll pull 3 cards for this. And I assume, are we thinking about, in particular, men who you might have, um, a potential romantic involvement with? Um, like, do we wanna focus this a little bit, or are we okay with just saying, like, half the population, or what is it, like, 49%? I think there's more women than men in the world at any given time. Because if we say all men, then, that would include, um, all kinds of people who, you know, wouldn't necessarily be available potentially as a love interest, but I don't know if you care about that, you know what I mean? I guess I'm wondering if, like, I don't know, like, the 85-year-old guy at the nursing home, do you care? Do you really care what he thinks of you? Um, that kind of thing. Okay, so why don't we ask, how do men who would potentially be available for a romantic relationship tend to view or perceive Saab? Okay, so I'll pull 3 cards for this, and we may pull more depending on what we get. Okay, these are shuffled, so let's do some overhand shuffling, and then we're gonna put 3 cards. Okay, here we go. Wheel of Fortune, 8 coins. Ooh, Knight of Cups. So, these cards indicate that they tend to see you as someone who is very good at setting and following through with a routine, right? Like, um, whatever it is that you need to do in your life, you're like organizing it, you're setting it up, and then you're good at sort of repeating that over and over, right? Uh, which can be very useful when um, something comes along to get in your way. If you know, like, how to repeat in the right way, then you can often overcome a lot of challenges, you get up and you do it again the next day. With the 8 of coins, there's a sense that perhaps you because of your ability to follow a routine, there might be a sense that, like, you kind of go along with the status quo a little bit. Uh, not always, because we'll get to the Knight of Cups in a moment, but with the 8 of coins, uh, I would see this as really industrious and able to be practical about working towards achieving your goals, but also the sort of flip side of that is, following the rules might be a way of putting it, right? Like, if people in your family or people at work or friends are saying, "Hey, you should do things like this and you'll be successful," there's a sense that, like, that's what you tend to do, right? Um, so that's one part of it. The other part of it is showing up with the Knight of Cups. And so the Knight of Cups is a romantic. And so I think that underneath all of this practical routine and going with the flow and be staying organized and, like, doing what the world tells you is what you're supposed to do, there is a deep sense of, uh wanting to offer up your heart to others, and it's a little bit kinda buried or hidden, it's maybe a little hard sometimes to access, but there's a glimmer of it there, and I think that it is, at least to those who are paying attention, it is visible that it's there, but, think of it like this this beautiful offering of a cup of your heart, so to speak, is kind of hidden behind all of these years. And so a person would need to find their way past the Wheel of Fortune and through these shiny teeth of these metal gears in order to get to that part of you that is offering up something really potentially deeply fulfilling, right? So there's sort of 2 sides to it there. I think I'd like to look at the surprise card too at the bottom of the deck just to see what that is. Ooh, there we go. It's 2 cups, right? So if 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 a person can sort of break through your routine and get past the the way you've sort of practically set up and organized everything in your life. They see that there's a deep sense of romance and potential for a very meaningful and mutually fulfilling partnership. So 2 angles to it there. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. I'm doing some free readings today. Check out the video description or the pinned chat message for information about how to request a free reading. And I've also decided to start doing paid private readings. You can check out the link in the video description if you're interested in that. You're welcome, Sab. You're very welcome. So next up, we have Cat Goddess, and I think some others have requested to be added. So I'm putting Priscilla at the end of the list. And Ete in 5D. Okay, great. So we have our question from Cat Goddess. All right. Okay, so Cat Goddess asks, how can I better improve things between me and the Capricorn? How would she even view me? Okay, so I think for this question, I'd like to do a 5-card cross spread. So I'll lay out 3 cards to indicate how she currently views you, and then I'll place 1 card on top to indicate how you can improve that situation, and 1 card on the bottom in the center to indicate what you definitely should not do, alright? And we'll read the top and bottom cards in tandem, in terms of one another. Alright, let's shuffle. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, and I'm doing some free live readings. Take a look at the video description for information about how to request a reading. All right, so Cat Goddess asks, how can I better improve things between me and the Capricorn? How does she even view me currently? Okay, first 3 cards indicate how she views you currently. 7 Cups, Temperance, 8 Swords. Alright. So something is making her uneasy, emotionally uneasy. Her heart has a sense of discord about it with the 7 cups. And, I see 7s as obstacles or challenges, and 7s have to do with feelings, emotions, and relationships, right? So there's something there that's got her a little bit like, unsure, not feeling super great, followed by Temperance, suggesting here, on the one hand, one of the classical interpretations of Temperance is that it's a card of healing because it goes immediately after Death in the major arcana. Death is number 13, Temperance is the 14th of the major, and so it can indicate, a kind of healing. Um, I find that it can also mean needing to be flexible or needing to, like, measure things up and then maybe sometimes decide whether or not, compromise is necessary, right? So something a little emotionally uncertain, uneasy, which is creating a sense of, like, "Do I need to compromise? Like, do I need to give something up a little bit so the other person can get what they want? Or, like, how could we mix this together?" Because it's not entirely clear, how to blend things, like, how the 2 of you blend together, right? And then we've got 8 swords, which, has shown up earlier today. So with 8 swords, this can mean that there are other people interfering, that there are other people who are creating a kind of bad atmosphere around the 2 of you, and so, I don't know if her feelings about you are also being influenced by other people in her life, but that is one thing to consider, right? Like, um is are there other people in her life who might be talking about you or that, like, just don't want her to be in a relationship at all, or, um, like, there are other factors in play, I think, besides just the 2 of you, right? It's like whatever's going on between the 2 of you doesn't exist in vacuum. The 8 of Swords is indicating that there are other, um like, outside parties, right, who are involved, and they're trying to to put a fence up. You can see in the illustration on this particular card, there's this chain link fence in the middle, and so, that's how I would read this, like, putting a fence up. So, um, let's throw 2 more cards down. And the 2 cards that we throw down, we'll put 1 up here and 1 down there. The 1 up here will be your guidance, like what you could do to achieve the best possible outcome, in this situation, and then we'll put 1 below Temperance, indicating what you definitely should not be doing, okay? So, first, the Popess. The Popess, or sometimes called the High Priestess in other decks. So the cards are telling you to be like Popess, and they're telling you to not be the Page of Cups. Okay, so, uh, the difference between these 2 figures is that the Page of Cups, it still is emotionally immature, right? So, the Page of Cups can be overly sensitive. The Page of Cups can react too quickly to things. The Page of Cups hasn't necessarily figured out for themselves what works in a relationship, what doesn't work in a relationship, and so, Page of Cups is someone who's really starting the journey of understanding what it means to be in an emotionally fulfilling relationship with someone, okay? And the cards are saying, "You can't be that." The things are not going to work out with this Capricorn person, if you are the Page of Cups. But if you are the Popess, you are likely to get a better outcome. So, the Popess is totally secure in herself. She knows what she's doing. Uh, she's also quiet about it, right? The Popess has this book, which you can see she has her book and her keys, and so she has the key to knowledge. She understands, she reads, she thinks, she writes, but she doesn't need to broadcast everything to other people. So you can see also the way comparing these 2 cards, uh, metaphorically speaking, the Popess is very covered up, right? We see just her face and just her hands. We don't see anything else about her, and there's this veil behind her that hides things, right? Not because she's secretive necessarily, but because, they just aren't necessarily anybody else's business, right? And compare that to the Page of Cups, where we can see their hair, we see all of their head and neck, we see their legs, they're more bare, they're more open, right? And so I'm not talking literally about, like, the kind of clothes you wear, but think of the clothes as metaphorically standing in for how you are, um, acting or behaving, around this other person and in the world more generally, right? Right now, bearing a whole lot of yourself is not necessarily the way to go. Right now, it might be a good idea to sort of sit down as opposed to standing, that's the other difference. The Page of Cups is standing ready to follow someone, right, ready to move off. The Popess is sitting. She's not moving right now, right? Today, she's sitting, she's calm, and she's studying, she's thinking. Right? So, maybe the biggest difference between these 2 cards is that the Popess thinks and the Page of Cups feels, right? And maybe to grow emotionally, maybe you need to think a little, right? As opposed to sort of wearing your heart on your sleeve and, um, bearing it all and exposing yourself and all that. Maybe there needs to be an interval, a moment of time for now, where you're, like, sitting and thinking and figuring things out. Practically, this might mean, like, maybe you need to journal about this person or just maybe start a journal generally. Um, I always advocate for journals, so I'm a big journaling kind of person. Okay, so that's what I see in the 5 cards here. Is there's a bit of emotional upset on her end, and she's trying to figure out how to be flexible or make a compromise, while other people or the atmosphere in general, may be kind of, um, putting up a fence. And so, for the moment, the best response from you, uh, is to think and sit and, um, don't feel like you need to overexpose yourself emotionally, um, at least not right at this moment, right? Okay, let me look at the chat and let me look at the list. So, next up, paradise. Next, you're welcome, goddess. You're very welcome. All right, and paradise is here, and we've already got the question. Fantastic. Okay, so paradise asks, how does S, who's an Aries, feel after our conversation today? And it says, "He loves me still? Thanks." So, we're wondering about how this Aries person feels about paradise after their conversation today, and it seems like we're particularly interested in whether there's still feelings of love. Okay. Okay. So how does S, the Aries, feel after the conversation in paradise today? So we'll lay down 3 cards and see where that gets us. Okay, 5 cups, hermit, hmm, and 5 batons. Okay, so the 5 cups that show up first are definitely indicating, that a certain there was a feeling of having grasped onto love. Uh, Seeing the hermit, looking back at the 5 cups does suggest the hermit is alone, right? The hermit is classically in the major arcana solo. They're hermit, right? They're loner. They don't have a partner. Uh, so, and reading from left to right, where left is past and right is future, these first 2 cards are giving a sense of, like, looking back at the love that was and trying to understand it, right? Like, thinking about it. The hermit, very much like the Popess, is a thinker, right? And so trying to understand it, if something went wrong, maybe trying to understand where it went wrong, what happened. And so this is what this Aries person is feeling. The feeling is to look back and try to understand what what did I have in my hand, so to speak. The 5 cups turn into 5 batons, and so the batons are more about, practical life, than they are about love, uh, and so seeing the exact same number, 5 to 5, that's why I say they transform, right? It's like the cups turn into batons. And so the sort of base answer to the question, I think, is, uh, I would say there still is love there, but it's transformed. Like, there's a layer over it now, and it's a practical thing. It's like instead of having grasped onto romance and this deep emotional connection, all of that, there's a feeling that what one has now, what this Aries person has now requires some work, right? Requires that there's pressure and that there needs to be some effort expended, right? With the cups, it's just you hang out and you drink them, and everything's wonderful and it's sweet and you feel good. These are all about good times. With the batons, you have to build, you have to work, you have to put things together, you have to work with others. It's not just fancy good times, right? And so that doesn't necessarily mean that the love is gone, but uh, it's changed character or changed its quality a bit, right? From cups to batons. Um, so let's look at the surprise card at the bottom of the deck and see what we get. Ha ha ha. It's the Popess again. There she shows up. One of my favorite cards, actually both of these. The Hermit, I named my tarot practice the Hermit's Lantern after the lantern that the hermit shines in order to gain clarity, right? But then, the Popess with her book, she's a favorite as well. So, I would read these 2 cards then, the Hermit and the Popess, as the 2, and because of the way the question was phrased about what does the Aries feel, I would read the Hermit as the Aries, and then you're showing up as the Popess. And so I think there's, 2 things to note. One is both of these, as I said a moment ago, they're thinkers. So there's a lot of thinking happening. There's a lot of trying to understand and working through and, like, figuring it out, and most of the feeling seems to be in the past, right? At least for now. And so the level has shifted from just feeling to now using one's mind, right? So that's one thing to note. Um, the other thing to note is the way that both of these figures look to the left, which means it's not just the hermit looking back, but the Popess is looking back too. And so, there may also be a focus more on what happened before as opposed to what's happening going forward. I kind of wonder, looking at this, is it clear to this Aries person the work that they do need to do, uh, if they want a relationship? And I say that because, um, the figure on the hermit card doesn't necessarily see the 5 batons that they need to start stacking in order to make things work with the Popess, right? Instead, there's this focus on the 5 cups from before. And so I think that might be a challenge that this person is trying to wrestle with or understand right now. Okay, so welcome to anyone who might be joining. I'm Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, doing some free live readings today. And if you're interested in reading, take a look at the video description or the pinned message in the chat to see how you can request one. I'm also now offering a private readings. You can look at the video description for information about how to book one of those if you're interested. Okay, so here's my current list. Touch of Love is next. So, Touch of Love, if you are here, I can do a reading for you. Okay, last call for Touch of Love. Okay, if Touch of Love is not here, then Cheyenne Brown. All right, Cheyenne's here. Hi, Cheyenne. Welcome, welcome, and you may post your question in the chat. Okay. All right. So, Cheyenne wants to know about their partner. Cheyenne asks, "Does my partner still have feelings for me and want to truly be with me? They said they want to find a way to make our relationship work, but they've been distant and are sending me mixed signals." All right. That sounds frustrating. So, let's pull 3 cards and get some clarity here. Does your partner still have feelings for you and want to truly be with you? Alright, let's see what we get. Judgment. Page of Cups. Page of Coins. Hmm. So, seeing the 2 pages show up, you said that they've been distant, right? So I think they're the Page of Cups and you're the Page of Coins. And I say that because the Page of Coins here on the right is looking at the Page of Cups, but the Page of Cups isn't looking back at the Page of Coins. The Page of Cups is looking at something over here to do with judgment. So that's why I would assign you showing up as Page of Coins and them showing up as Page of Cups. And so if that is the case, then, just looking at the court cards, the fact that they're both pages suggests, um, from your partner's perspective, because all of this is coming from their perspective, right? There's, a sense that you both have a lot still to learn, like, you're still in kind of the beginning of your journey, right? Pages are the lowest rank in the hierarchy of the court in the court cards of the tarot. And so the Page of Coins suggests that your partner knows that they, on some level, knows that they are kind of emotionally immature, right? Because the Page of Cups hasn't figured out their emotions yet. They're at the beginning of that journey still. And so seeing your partner show up as this card suggests that on some level they are aware of that. And so that tells me the part about them being distant or sending you mixed signals may have more to do with their own current path, their own emotional education or journey that they're on than it does about, um, how they genuinely feel towards you, right? With you showing up at the as the Page of Coins, this suggests that, again, from your partner's perspective, you are there offering something important, right? The Page of Coins is holding up this coin as though to say, "Hey, look, if you and I got together, maybe we could invest in this. Maybe we could do something valuable with this coin," right? But your partner is, like, turning away from it, and maybe they're overly sensitive or they're sulking or whatever it might be, and so they're not sort of taking you up on your offer, so to speak. It could also be, and I don't know anything about you or your partner, I'm just reading the cards, but it could also be that, because your partner is trying to still learn about what works for them in a relationship and trying to learn about their own emotions and how to deal with them and all of that, um, they may see your offer of a coin as like, "Why are you offering me a coin? I'm a Page of Cups," right? Like, I'm looking for something that I would feel is emotionally fulfilling as opposed to something shiny and valuable, right? Um, like ideas, for example, right? Like conversation, for example, right? And so there may be, from your partner's perspective, there may be a kind of mismatch between, uh, what your partner sees as wanting in the relationship and what they think you see as, valuable in the relationship, right? And so, the other thing to consider is judgment, which we have over here as the first card. And so the Page of Cups is looking at judgment instead of looking at, uh, this pretty valuable, important thing that you are holding up for them, right? And so I would read judgment here, um, trying to think of the right way to say this. Um, well, let's put it this way. With judgment, do you see that we have lots of other people? Well, 3 other people and then an angel, right? And so this does suggest to me that there's a possibility here that your partner is sort of, um, has their eye on others, so to speak, right? Other people out in public, other people out in the world, right? And so, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't still have feelings for you, but I do think, given that they're a Page of Cups, they don't know what to do with the different contradictory feelings that they may have, right? And so, it's not that there's no love there for you, it's that I think your partner is trying to figure themselves out. That would be a really succinct way of putting this, right? Uh, like their emotional capacity is not yet has not yet grown, to being as deep as it can someday be, right? Uh, and so maybe this person hasn't totally figured out for themselves what it is in the long term they really want. Let's look at the surprise card for Cheyenne and see what else is in there. Okay. It's 9 swords. Okay, so the surprise card is the bottom card of the deck, and so it's the thing that doesn't explicitly show up, it's like waiting in the wings. It's the thing that, um, the subject of the reading, who is your partner, may themselves not be totally aware of, okay? So, 9 of swords here, uh, the first thing that comes to mind is anxiety. The Page of Cups may not Page of Cups, meaning your partner, may not be totally aware of the extent to which their own anxieties are, um, are causing problems or putting pressure or, um, making things change for the worse. They may not have totally addressed that, and I say that particularly because it's the bottom of the deck. Something that's a surprise to them, right? Something that's, not fully acknowledged, and so there could be a sense here, um, there could be a dynamic here, in which their own anxieties are driving them away, right? Instead of having them address those anxieties, they're not totally aware of them, um, and that can complicate things. Okay. So here's the list at the moment. Next up would be Priscilla. You're so welcome, Cheyenne. Yeah, Cheyenne says, "That makes sense, they've been dealing with a lot of emotions." I think they have, and I think that they're also dealing with figuring out how to make sense of emotions. They're still, learning. Okay, so Priscilla is next, if Priscilla is here. Hi, Priscilla. So you are welcome to post your question in the chat. Okay, so Priscilla wants to know about her energies at the moment. So I'll pull 3 cards. Alright. What are Priscilla's energies at the moment? Okay, let's see. The Magician. Ooh, the Popess again, and 10 coins. Well, this is nice to see. I like this. So Magician be a trickster, and so, that's one thing that always comes up when I see the magician, I think, what kind of magic are you doing, or what kind of tricks might you be doing? Uh, if you do magic, then, there you go, that there are magical energies about. But the other more, mundane way of reading a magician is, this is the card of someone who, on the one hand, is very good at, um, what is the word? Improvising, making things happen, right? Like getting people's attention when necessary and, orchestrating things, setting things up. Think of the way in which a stage magician, right? Like, if you go to like a magic show in Las Vegas or something, everything is totally orchestrated down to the tiniest little movement and detail and costume and design, and everything is like you can't my microphone's not working? That's not good to hear. Is it, let me make sure I'm plugged in. How do I sound now? Let me know, folks, if you can hear me okay. Better. Okay. Okay. Good, good. Alright. I don't know, you're welcome. I don't know what the problem was, but so, the magician can orchestrate things, right? And choreograph everything in their life down to the tiniest little detail, right? Uh, Now that said, the magician also has a lot on their table, right? So there could be a sense that maybe you feel like you have to carefully choreograph every little detail in your life because there's just sort of too much on your table, too much on your plate, so to speak, right? So, um, there could be too much busyness, a lack of focus, and for that reason, your response to it might be like, "Okay, well, then I'm going to be very intentional and careful about, how I'm choreographing each little detail in my life." Whereas if you sort of cleared the table off, you could be more focused and you wouldn't have to spend so much energy, um, organizing and choreographing every little detail, right? So that's one thing. That's what we see with the first card. I think that the movement from magician to poetess suggests the energy you're embracing. No, it's not working again? Okay. Um, Let me think of what I could do. I think if I unplug the microphone, it might end the stream. Hang on. Okay, so I'm gonna unplug the microphone and see what happens. Bear with me. Okay. Do I have audio? I tried unplugging the microphone, plugging it back in. Okay. So hopefully that will fix the problem. If not, let me know and I will try again. Okay. Okay. Good. Sounds like it is better now. All right. Cool. Thank you. So, on the one hand, the magician, on the other, the magician becomes the popess, right? So you asked about what your current energies are now, and it's like there is this movement of clearing off the table, sitting down, and thinking, picking up your book, and you'll know for your own circumstance what the book might mean to you. But it could mean reading or study, right? It could be a magic book, right? Seeing the magician here does make me think, what's a magician without their magic book? Ah, but if the magician sits down and becomes the popess, maybe they find their magic book and pick it up and start reading it. It can also be writing. I think the popess is the one, of the major arcana, the one who is most likely to um, put pen to paper and to write down, keep a record of what's happening in her life, right? So, um, as I recommended to someone else earlier today, we could think of journaling, for example. So, what happens or what is happening to you in terms of your energies in the movement or the transition you're having between, um, doing magician kind of things and doing Hobesque kind of things, and the outcome is 10 coins, which is lovely. This is brilliance and growth and completion. Uh, as many good results as a person could hope to have. I mean, this is really auspicious, at least from my perspective it is. Seeing a movement from someone who's a magician becoming a popess, and out of that shift, getting the 10 coins. Okay, let me try something else for the audio. Okay, how's the audio now? Is this better? Not really, okay. So I was using a separate microphone before, and now I'm just using my regular, built-in. Yeah, I've left it twice now, and, if it's still not better, I'm not sure what I can do. Let me try refreshing the page. Okay, so Devaney says to restore audio, exit mute for the live. Maybe one of if you're having problems with the audio, maybe you need to leave and then come back in, and maybe that will fix it. Unless if everyone is having problems with my audio, then maybe it is a problem on my end. Is if there's anyone who, is there anyone who's not having problems with my audio? Okay, Devaney says I can hear you, so I think maybe it's not maybe the audio problem's not on my end. It may have to do okay. Sounds like okay. So some folks are getting me intermittently, and then it's staccato, and others can hear me just fine. So I think if some folks are hearing me just fine, that I don't know that there's anything I can do because it sounds like it's not the input, it's the output? Okay, so Devaney says they can hear me perfectly. So I'm gonna keep going, and then, um, I assume this means that it's recording fine. So if you can't hear me in the live super well, by tomorrow, this video, should be posted up on my, YouTube site, and you can watch it then. And I'm at about the hour and a half mark right now. So you could watch it, after the fact. Okay. Yeah, I think it's not being recorded with the I think it's being recorded fine, and the issue is that, it's coming out on your end as distorted for some of you. Okay, so, sorry for the interruptions, but, these are the the energies that you've got. It's magician, it's popess, and then the transition or movement from magician to popess is creating excellent results for you, right? 10 of coins. So the 10 of coins, can be intellectual brilliance. It could also mean, money. Uh, Although you didn't ask specifically about money, you asked about energies, and so I would think here that, this is more about, um, the brilliance of your mind, right? And less about, like, cash on the table, cash in your purse, so to speak. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, and I'm doing some free live readings today. Okay, so let me see. Some folks asked to be added to the list, and I'm scrolling up to see where I left off. So, Ayes Sheres, I'm adding you to the bottom of the list. And Devaney, I'm adding you to the bottom of the list. Storytime Kitchen, I'm adding you. Starry Night, I'm adding you. Ritwik Manchanda, I'm adding you to the bottom of the list. see. Zowie, you're at the bottom of the list. Selema Witena, bottom of the list. Okay, so here's the current list. It's a long one. Welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. I'm doing some free readings today. I'm going to work my way through this list, and I'm going to close the list for now, although I may reopen it if I skip over folks or have more time. Also, I've decided to start offering paid private readings. If you're interested in that, you can check out the description of the video for the link to book a reading. So next up is Ete A5D. That's next on my list, followed by AS Hares. Okay. All right. So the question we have from ET5D is, what can I expect within the next 3 months? And thanks for the compliment about my handwriting. I appreciate it. So the current list is Ete A5D, that's now, followed by Ayez Hares, followed by Devaney Strickland, then the Storytime Kitchen, then Starry Night, then Rick Wick, then Zowie, and then Setema Mitena? And you can, estimate 10 to 15 minutes per reading. Although, if I call someone's name and they're not here, I'll skip over to the next one. Okay, so for Ete, what can Ete expect in the next 3 months? We'll get a general sense by laying out 3 cards. Okay, here we go. Ooh, 4 cups, king of coins, and 6 cups. That's fantastic. You're gonna have a really good 3 months, I think. So, here you are as the king of coins, sitting on your throne, so to speak, and possessing all the resources that you need to do what you need to do, and you're very comfortable. 4 cups is stability and security and comfort. in a way that is emotionally fulfilling, and, um, solid, right? And so that's wonderful, but it gets even better, which is that the 4 cups turn into 6 cups. So over those 3 months, there's an increase. It's slow. The movement from 4 to 6 is slow, but it's an increase in your cups, right? Putting you on, this is the path of happiness, the 6 of cups. This can also refer to continuity in relationships, meaning that, um, whatever relationships you have with others, they endure, right? So, relationships that you've started with others in the past continue on into the future, and there's continuity and, endurance with those. So, these are wonderful to see. It's comfort, stability, security. This is home, this is family with the 4 of cups. Uh, you are looking forward at the way in which your cups slowly grow or slowly increase in number, and you've got this lovely coin in your hand inside the, cornucopia of, um, what is that? Fruits and vegetables, to nourish you, and so you've got all the resources that you need. Um, so I think you should expect a very nice 3 months ahead of you. I will say it's pretty rare to get cards this positive, and so I am tempted because those of you who've been watching me for a while and know how I read, you know that I'm always looking for where is the complication in the reading, whether it seems generally good or bad, like, where's the other side of the coin, so to speak? Um, and it's tough to find it in this particular reading, which is a good thing, but if you like, I could look at the surprise card at the bottom of the deck. I don't know what it'll be, but if, if we wanna see, like, what might be unexpected, what might be a surprise, what might be unknown, potentially something to watch out for, we can flip that over. So let's do that. And it's the star, the star. So another card that generally is quote unquote positive or good, but the thing about the star, I read it often as about giving, right? So the star can, the star is very good at giving to others, like releasing what is no longer useful and giving freely and openly to others. The one possible issue I could see here would be if the king of coins turns into the star, then the king of coins no longer has their coin. So, one thing maybe to look out for, to watch out for in these upcoming 3 months, even though I think generally it's gonna be a very nice time for you, would be perhaps being too free with your resources, like money is the first thing that comes to mind. If you are giving too much money, you might not sort of have a shirt on your back anymore. Uh, the king Turning into the star means that you're no longer on your throne. You don't have your coin, you're pouring out everything you've got. And so I'd maybe be a little cautious in this upcoming period of time. I'm not saying don't give to others, but, um, be careful of giving so much of yourself that you have nothing left, right? But overall, these are wonderful cards, predictive reading. Okay, so here's our list. So Ayez Hares is next, followed by Devaney Strickland, and then if you're further down the list, that's Storytime Kitchen, Starry Night, Ritwik, Zawi, Setema. You're welcome, Ete. I think you're gonna have a really good couple of months there. So welcome to anyone who might be joining. I'm Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot doing some free readings today. Next up, we have Ayez Hares. And so because my list is so long, I'm not gonna add more to it right now, but we'll see how things go if I'm able to open it up again today. And of course, if I'm not able to read for you today, I'm happy to read for you in the future. Okay, so last call for Ayez Hares, Ayes Hares. If you're here, I'll read for you. Otherwise, Devaney is up next. Devaney Strickland. Okay, Devaney wants to know any guidance for the next 2 months, February and March. Oh, no worries, Bob Hope. No need to be sorry. Okay, so for Devaney Strickland, any guidance for the next 2 months, February and March? Okay, let's see what we get. Guidance for Destiny for the next 2 months, February and March. Okay, first card down, Knight of Cups, followed by the Ace of Cups, followed by the Pope, and each of these cards are looking at something. So, we need more cards. Put 1 down. Aha. Okay, we're gonna have a long line. Okay. Devaney, do you mind if I ask if you're single or if there's any interest on your end in a romantic relationship? 'Cause some of the cards here indicate that that could be a possibility, and so if I have the context. Okay, married years, great. Okay, so let's just read it from left to right, and so we're talking about, oh, I see. Okay, so you're married 8 years, but you're not sure if you should stay or move on. Okay, so 2 batons sets the tone for the reading, indicating that, like, you are working with someone, cooperating with someone, but also maybe kind of competing with that person too, and I suspect that you are maybe the hermit here, trying to understand or figure out or shed a light on what is this relationship you have in which it's very practical and but it's, like, more about maybe working together than about something deeply emotionally fulfilling. Uh, so that's one thing. The other thing we've got is the Knight of Cups here, sort of riding towards you with their offering of their heart extended, right? And so you may maybe need to anticipate, it could be useful for you to anticipate that someone is coming to offer you something that you from a direction that's unexpected, right? You have your back turned to this person, and they're coming towards you and saying and you're not gonna be expecting because you're shining your light over here looking at the 2 batons, which is about being practical, it's about working together, cooperating, building things, getting things done. And from behind, from a from an angle you're not anticipating, someone comes along to offer you something else that maybe looks like it's gonna be really sweet, really great, really nice. And maybe it is for a while because there's a lot of potential in it. We get the Ace of Cups. This little cup that's offered to you turns into a big, giant, huge cup. It's only 1, so it's just the beginning of something, and it's a whole lot of potential, and so there's no sense yet of whether or not it will turn into something else. But if I think sort of tongue in cheek that size matters in the tarot, and so if we see this little bitty cup becomes this huge giant cup, right? So there's this emotionally fulfilling offering that starts out kinda shallow and small, but has enormous potential, grows up really, really, really big, right? And then what happens? Then the Pope steps in. And so the Pope, uh, is you said you're married, and so I can't help but think of the way that Pope, represents tradition and represents, official relationships or making relationships official, right? And so, there are other things I could say about the Pope too, but the Pope is about sticking to the way things are kind of supposed to be, right? Almost dogmatically. Uh, and the Pope then creating an Eight of Swords situation. And as I've read Eight of Swords earlier today, uh, Eight of Swords can indicate that they're what you get is kind of a bad atmosphere, like other people interfering, or it can be collections of your own thoughts interfering, but, like, something that seemed like it was gonna be really awesome or had the potential to be really awesome actually kind of turns out to be a bunch of swords, right? So, your question was about what guidance you need for the next months, and so the quick way of answering the question, the most straightforward way of answering the question would be to say that, if someone comes along kind of unexpectedly to offer you, um, their heart or to offer you anything that seems like it's gonna be really fulfilling and sweet and nice and maybe be aware of it a bit because that situation, that cup growing, is gonna end up sort of turning into a prickly situation. So, could it be business related? So, um, here's how I'd answer that question. If you had asked, "Do you ha if I have any business guidance for the next 2 months?" Then I'd say, "Sure." It would be business related, but the specific question was more general than that, and so in that case, would read the cards more in line with, with their function, like, with what they, actually do, and so cups are about emotions and love, and so unless in your own life you would think of the business as being something you love or something that is deeply emotionally fulfilling, then I would say, "No, it's not about business." But if you do like, if your business is something that you truly deeply love and that is how you get your emotional fulfillment, then yes. it could have to do with business. And if that's the case, okay, yes, absolutely. So then, sure, it could be. In that case, um, I would read it as the Knight of Cups could be offering you something to help make your business better, like, to help develop your business, to grow it and its potential, but it's maybe not gonna turn out as good as you'd hoped. So, whoever this is who offers you who's, like, trying to offer you something about your business, I would hold off on accepting that thing from them, because 'cause they're probably going to say things about how easy it's going to make things. They're going to tell you about how, um sweet everything's going to be, how everything's going to grow, how everything's going to be fulfilling, and, like, your cup is going to run over with clients or whatever it might be, and it's possible that that's even gonna happen for a while, but then something is gonna step in an authoritative institutional kind of way and cut that flow off with a bunch of swords, and so, I would be very wary, about accepting any offerings relating to your business that seem too good to be true. That's how I put it, right? Anyone who tells you that the little cup is gonna turn into the biggest cup, might end up with a reckoning that that leaves you with a bunch of swords, which generally we don't want. Generally, we don't want a bunch of swords. Okay. So Storytime Kitchen is next. You're very welcome. Okay, hi Storytime Kitchen. Glad you're here, and you're welcome to post your question in the chat. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. I do live streams of free readings, first come, first served, and I started just recently Thanks, in fact, to the encouragement of Storytime Kitchen, to offer paid private readings as well. And you can check out the link in the description of the video if you're interested in booking a private reading. Okay, so Storytime Kitchen says, my question is, will this person and I ever actually meet? And what will the outcome be when we do? Thanks, Storytime Kitchen. I'm glad too. I'm excited about it. It's something I've been thinking about for a very long time. And I've read my cards for it over and over and over. And finally, I read the cards, and it was really clear that it was time. Okay, so for Storytime Kitchen, will this person and Storytime Kitchen ever actually meet? And what will be the outcome when they do, if they do? Oh, what did the cards say? So I'd several times I'd asked, like, whether or not it was time to really start a tarot business as opposed to having it as a hobby, and, so I laid down 3 cards for each option. The first option was, should I just start the business now? Or the other option was wait until, another time, and, I wrote down the cards in my journal, so I could look at them and remember them for future. I can't remember them off the top of my head now, but essentially it said, like, even though there's going to be some bumps in the road now, conditions in the future are never going to be more favorable than they are for me now, and so I should if I'm gonna do it, I may as well do it now because it's not like waiting was gonna get me anything. Waiting would just sort of really be procrastinating, so, um, it they suggested, like, do it, if you're gonna do it, do it. So I'm doing it. Okay, so will you and this person ever actually meet? We have the Potess, we have Page of Wands, we have King of Cups, and we need more cards. So let's see. Okay, okay. So I laid down 6 because the way I do this, if you haven't, if you don't know, is I lay down 3, but then if I get cards with people looking and I don't know what they're looking at, I wanna know what they're looking at, so I lay down more cards, and so the Potess was looking left, and I didn't know what. It was the Queen of Swords who was looking left, and so I laid down another card, got the Magician. The King of Cups was looking to the right, and I needed to know what that was, and that's the 4 of, the 4 of Cups. So, let me take a look at this. There are a lot of people. 3 court cards, Queen of Swords, Page of Wands, King of Cups. Okay. Let me just look at these a minute. So, the most obvious cards here that represent you are Queen of Swords and Popess. The most obvious card representing, this other person, I think, is the King of Cups. The Page of Wands in this set, might just be a message rather than an actual person, because pages can be messengers. Okay. Storytime Kitchen says, they're going back a touch in the stream because the audio is breaking up. Yeah, other people have said the same thing to me today, and I don't know why. Some folks seem like it's alright, but, uh, I've tried changing the microphone and unplugging it and restarting, and so, yeah, if it's delayed, at least you'll still get the message. Okay. So, I'm just trying to decide whether the 2 of you are meeting. Because if to answer that question with a resounding yes, whether you will actually meet, the best thing to see would be 2 face cards that are looking directly at each other, right? 2 people looking, meeting each other, right? And so we have lots of people here, but I don't see any 2 that are directly facing one another as though they're meeting one another, right? Like, for example, the Page of Wands and the King of Cups are kind of facing each other, except the King of Cups has his head turned. His body is facing this way, but then his head is facing the other way, to the right. And so I'm not certain I can give a resounding yes to the question of whether the 2 of you will ever actually one another, as in meet in person. That's how I was interpreting it, right? Like in the flesh, so to speak. So, let's read these from left to right. The magician is maybe has too much going on. There could be a kind of atmosphere between the 2 of you of, like, too many things happening at once. There's too many things on the table, so to speak. And then you, I think, showing up as the Queen of Swords are looking at this situation and trying to make a judgment to sort of get something to happen, right? You've got your sword ready, like, "Let's cut away the extra things on the table. Let's streamline all of this. Whatever's getting in the way of us, let's cut it off so that we can see things clearly and so that we can, well, meet and hopefully, it sounds like, develop that into something more." And then the Queen of Swords turns into the Popess as though there's a moment of silence, a period of silence where communication is not necessarily happening, which isn't necessarily for for the worse, but with the Popess, it's very much about sitting quietly so that one can think and understand what's going on. So there may be a sense of, like, keeping a record of your interactions with this other person, and then I think sending a message. So I've got my answer. Um, I don't I think the Page of Wands is absolutely showing up as a message that is sent in lieu of or in place of, uh, a face-to-face meeting, right? And as I would preface any reading, of course, this is all subject to change, right? We're not talking about fate, and we're not talking about destiny or what absolutely is going to happen. We're talking about, the way things are headed at the moment, right? Sort of like a weather forecast, right? So, right now, I think there's more a sense of sending a message to this King of Cups person. And the result of that is a Four of Cups situation, which is, on the one hand, cups are great. We love cups because they are about, especially in a relationship reading, because they're about emotional fulfillment and happiness and all of that. And with four, though, I also think of four being security and stability in the sense that it's so stable it doesn't necessarily change. So, I think the cards here are indicating that it's it's not, at least the way things look right now, it's not a face-to-face meeting, it's a sending of messages between you. So, between you is a message or a messenger, right? As opposed to the 2 of you looking one another in the face, in between is a message, and that suggests to me that there is a distance between you because there's no need to send a message if there's no distance, right? The messenger suggests there's a distance between you, which must be covered by the message. So, um, I do remember that other reading we did, and you came up as the Popess, and there was a Queen of Swords there too. Yes, and so in that case, if we read the Queen of Swords and not as you, but as this other person, 'cause I think there's a Queen of Swords and Queen of Cups. Um, I mean, if we follow that, then the Queen of Swords is further from him than you are. So in that sense, maybe there's a little magic happening with the magician. Um, you, as the Popess, are closer to him in terms of distance, right? Literal or figurative, uh, than the Queen of Swords is. But the 2 of you still have something in between you, which is the Page of Wands, who is the messenger, right? So, messages are sent instead of the 2 of you meeting face to face, resulting in, um, things kind of continuing as they have been, with the 4 being stability, kind of things not changing, right? But it's a good kind of stability. I mean, we we'd rather have 4 cups than 4 swords, for example, right? At least in the way that I read the cards. So, the sort of the answer to the question of will you and this person ever actually meet, you know, I'd never say never, uh, because I think the further out you go, the more variables you are, and therefore, uh, there's just plenty of unknown, right? Because we don't know what circumstances might happen and what decisions people might make and all of that kind of thing. And so I would never say never, uh, but from the trajectory of things as they are now, it does seem like you get closer to him than this Queen of Swords person was, uh, but there's still some distance between you that needs to be covered by a message, right? By the sending of messages. Yeah, Four of Cups showed up in the other reading too. The way he felt about me, it was Popes, Devil, Four of Cups. Yeah, and so that makes sense if he's showing up as King of Cups looking at Four of Cups again. Um, I think about this isn't a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but with the Four of Cups, I do sometimes think about that image in the Four of Cups on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, where, like, something is being offered but not accepted, right? And so, um, we might think of it in those terms, the way, like, something fulfilling, emotionally fulfilling, like a relationship is being offered, but the King of Cups sort of isn't grasping it, at least not in these cards today, right now, right? And so you say you've been sending him a kind of a friendly message each morning, and so that fits with Page of Wands because, if it were a Page of Cups, for example, we would in this spread, I would read that as like a love message, a love note, that kind of thing. With the batons, I read that as more of a social interaction as opposed to, you know, kisses and hugs, love letter kind of it's a more practical kind of friendly social thing. The other thing I'd say about the King of Cups is if he is showing up as the King of Cups, yes, it's true, you're now in closer proximity to him than the Queen of Swords person. But the other thing about the King of Cups is, do you see in the image of the cup, his cup is round and very deep, right? But the opening is very small, as though while there's a lot there, emotionally speaking, that it's very narrow. To get in and out, it's very narrow. It's and so that's intentional, I think, or meaningful, that little detail on the illustration of the King of Cups, that he has a lot of emotional depth, but sometimes sort of getting in or out of the cup, so to speak, is a challenge for him because that the sort of emotional opening is so small. The King of Cups can represent the kind of person who, while they have a lot of emotional depth and creativity and empathy and all of that, excuse me, feels that in order to gain position and power and stability in the world, they've had to sort of give up some of their emotional depth, and that can make them kind of a complicated figure to deal with. Excuse me. Yeah, I do think it's reflected in his body language on the card with the body facing one way, with the head facing the other, as though intellectually he's looking ahead, but underneath it all, like, he kind of wants to go back, maybe to a time when he wasn't a king, when he didn't have to have responsibilities, when he didn't have to be in charge, when he didn't have to have power and worry about things, and he could, be a knight of cups or even a page of cups and sort of relinquish all of that pressure, and sort of, spill the cup a little bit more, as it were, whereas now he's gotta be so careful to maintain his kingly status, he's gotta be very careful to keep that cup closed off. Yes, and you point out the detail about the ship. Even the ship, it's like the ship wants to sail this way, but the head looks that way. So I think he's very, conflicted about things. That's a great, insight about the ship. Okay, so let's look at the list. Starry Night is next. And yes, the list is closed at the moment. Oh, good, Starry Night's here. I may open the list up again. We'll see what happens with the other folks who are currently on the list. In other words, we'll see if they are still here when it's their turn. Okay, so let me shuffle. And Starry Night asks, "What would fix, get my life on track, or accelerate progress?" So I think for this question, a 5-card cross would be a good choice. We'll lay down 3 cards to represent your current situation, and then 2 more cards, 1 on top and 1 on bottom to make a cross, and the top card will indicate the best thing to do, and the bottom card will indicate what not to do. I really like that spread, and in fact, I think it's a good daily spread. You lay 3 cards down to say, "Here's my day. Here's what's gonna happen to me today," and then you place 1 on top to say, "Here's how I'm gonna deal with it," and 1 on the bottom to say, "Here's what I'm not gonna do," or "Here's what I shouldn't probably do." Storytime Kitchen says, "He's telling me he's with one woman who I believe he could well be seeing, and there is, I believe, a whole other woman in the mix who he isn't telling me about, who may be the real issue." Boy, that's messy from his part, if that's what's going on. I think he needs to figure out what he wants. You're welcome, Storytime Kitchen. All right, Starry Night. Let's pull some cards. Okay. 8 coins, 1 coin, and the tower. So, the first thing that comes to mind is money troubles. That's the first thing, I see coins in the tower, and then the coins are from 8 down to 1, so, like, quite a bit down to, like, 1. Uh, and so, these are describing your situation. So, um, if you had 8 coins and then you're going to have just 1, then that would be a kind of tower moment potentially, right? Where it feels like metaphorically the house is on fire, right? Like, um, we've got here it's kind of very colorful fire, but up here it's like the lightning strikes the tower, knocks the crown off, that kind of um, and that's literally what we see in the image. Metaphorically, we can think of it as there are contradictions in something you've built up or that has been built up in life, and, um, and those contradictions are sort of, what's the word? Um, Showing themselves, right? So, if it if it's not money specifically, you didn't ask about money, but, uh, I see lots of coins, and so that's where my mind goes first. But coins don't necessarily represent money, right? There's other things they can represent. So, it could have to do if money isn't resonating with you. With the 8 of coins, it can represent, going along with other people's ideas. With 8s, I think of groups of people, and so especially in this deck where each of the coins is a gear with a little, like, tooth on it, right? Like a cog in the machine, that kind of thing. Um, there might be a feeling of, like, well, just, like, going through the motions, feeling like a cog in the machine, feeling like you're just doing what everybody else wants you to do, as opposed to figuring out your own personal values. And the ace of coins then would indicate reconfiguring that so that you're not just doing what everybody else thinks you should, and you're sort of re-aiming or, finding a new focus for something that, while it doesn't fit into the cogs of the machine, is literally bigger, right? See, the way the ace of coins is so much larger than all the little coins that are cogs in the machine, Um, but that may require you to kind of tear down or let fall down some of the things you've already built up. So let's pull 2 more and make this a cross, one above, one below, and put those in the mix and see what it gets us. And the one on top again, this is the advice for what you can do to get the best possible outcome for yourself in this situation. And it's a page of cups, and then underneath, what you should not do is the magician. So, seeing the page of cups come up here, yes, the Page of Cups can be emotionally mature, but the other thing the Page of Cups can do is to follow a dream. The Page of Cups can is a kind of dreamer who, even though they, even though they might be uncertain or maybe even a little naive about what is required for them to achieve that dream, they're starting out to do it anyways. And so seeing the Page of Cups here in the top position makes me think, like, is there any way in which instead of doing and valuing and following the ideas of everybody else, you find a new target, something else more valuable to you that you can follow, even if it means your tower's gonna have to crumble before you can kind of rebuild it in a way that the Page of Cups would find more satisfying. So, what can you do to fix your life, get your life on track, accelerate progress? It sounds like you need to follow something that you find truly fulfilling, as opposed to maybe tricking yourself or tricking others into thinking that doing what everybody else does and thinks is making you happy. So, with the tower, traditionally, the tower is it has to fall down for something else to grow up, right? But that can come in different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean, for example, that, like, for example, your actual living situation needs to be destroyed. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to let your career implode so that you can start another one. It doesn't necessarily mean any of those things. It can be more conceptual. It can be more about, especially when I see it next to all these coins, the ideas that you have, the concepts, the stories that you tell yourself about who you are and what matters to you and what's fulfilling to you, maybe those need to be revised, right? And so it can be that kind of a tower moment. It doesn't necessarily mean your life has to blow up. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't necessarily indicate that your literal life needs to be torn down, but it may mean that your ideas about it may be contradictory and that you need to resolve those contradictions, which means, you know, one of them might need to sort of snap, right? And so pursuing this dream or this fulfilling thing that you might be uncertain about is that's your advice of, like, what to do as opposed to tricking yourself about what you really care about, and as opposed to, trying to keep yourself busy or overoccupied with all of these many, many different things on your table. There's too much here, right? And do you care about all these things, or are all of these things only on your table because other people think they're valuable, and so you've kind of gone along with that when now it's time to refocus, re-aim, um, and find something else that you truly find valuable in life. Alright, let's look at the list. Ritwik Menchenda is next, if Ritwik is here. So maybe if you are interested in different things, but you don't have one specific thing, maybe what needs to happen is instead of being the magician who's, like, interested in the green cup and interested in the red cup and interested in the coin and interested in the knife, right? Maybe what needs to happen is figuring out what is the one thing that you could follow, right? Like, the Page of Cups just has their one cup that they're totally immersed in, totally mesmerized with. They don't have a table full of different things that are all laying out in front of them. So focusing, finding a focus, I think, and I would say that too with the Ace of Coins in the center. I think of the Ace of Coins sometimes as a bullseye, as a target, right? Like you're shooting your arrow, right? And focusing on that single target as opposed to all these 8 coins that other people tell you are really pretty and shiny and valuable. Yeah, Page of Cups does often indicate creativity. Yes. So is Ritwik here? That second call for Ritwik? Uh, any other paths it indicates? I mean, we could do another reading in future. Like, if what I might suggest is from your table of options, so to speak, maybe you isolate a handful of them, I don't know, 3 or 5, and then we could pull cards for each one, you know what I mean? In a future reading. Okay, last call for Ritwik Manchenda. You're very welcome, Starry Night. Okay, if Ritwik is not here, then Zawi, your turn. Hi, Zowie. I don't know if I've read for you before. All right, well, welcome. So feel free to post your question in the chat. Aha, here it is. All right, it's a Valentine's Day question. So the question is if anything will happen between me and HG on Valentine's Day. If so, what? All right, so I'll pull 3 cards to describe what is likely to happen between you and HG on Valentine's Day. Okay. Here we go. Let's see what we get. The Chariot. Page of Coins. Page of Cups. Didn't we see these 2 earlier? You all saw me shuffle. Okay, so, um, without more context, I couldn't say for certain who is who, like which page is you and which page is the other person. But there's a clear sense of you, like, driving off to do something together. Uh, one of you, Page of Cups, is focused on the other person, right? And then the Page of Coins person is instead of facing and looking back, is sort of looking at the Chariot as though, um, with the Chariot, we always wonder, are they coming or going, right? So, the fact that we have 2 people here in your question about 2 people, is telling in that it indicates, uh, both of you are sort of playing a role in what's going to happen then. I think what I'm seeing is that someone is trying to get the other person to get together on Valentine's Day, right? And so maybe that's you. I'm just guessing that based on the sort of what's implied in your question. But then the person who you're trying to get to reciprocate your feelings is very distracted staring at their shiny coin, right? Uh, So, let me see. Let me pull another card because there's a very slight tilt of the chariot to the left, and both of the horses look left. So let me pull another card. It's the Fool. Okay. Yeah, you say that you think you might be the Page of Cups. I think so too. I think you're the Page of Cups, which means this HG person is the Page of Coins. So here's what it is. The, the Fool suggests walking forward with no sense of what's going to happen, and also ignorance is bliss, right? So, um, total uncertainty about what's gonna happen. Of course, now I'm telling you what you already know, right? The fool gets into their chariot and is trying to sort of get the attention because the charioteer, eh, attracts attention, with, their big fancy car and their armor and, um, their horses and all of that kind of stuff, but I'm not sure the Page of Coins is getting the message because the Page of Coins is so engrossed in whatever their coin is, right? Uh, so it's like they're distracted, sort of, and so that's suggesting to me that without some change, I'm not sure his attention will be, um, pulled towards you. Well, I don't know if it's a he. I don't know if HG's attention will be pulled towards you in a way that will get him or them, um, to go out with you on Valentine's Day, right? Well, so you asked change from me or change from him. It's sort of here's one way to think of it. Cups, I tend to think of them as like they're an offering, like, "Hey, here's this thing. Do you want it?" Right? And so if you're the Page of Cups, then it's sort of like you're giving an option, like, "Hey, Page of Coins, do you wanna go out with me?" Right? As opposed to maybe more forcefully saying, "Hey, you and I, let's go out on Valentine's Day." Because whatever this guy's or this Page of Coins is holding has, like, totally captured his attention to the point that, number 1, this person's not facing you, but number 2, even if you were to drive up in your fancy car, their their line of sight is blocked by the coin, right? Like, they can't even see you when the coin is in their face. So, I think if you haven't already made it abundantly, totally crystal clear that you want to go out with this person on Valentine's Day, I don't know that this person is even, like, considering that. So, one way of saying this might be if you're waiting for him to ask you, I would just tell you to ask him. Yeah, you haven't asked him. So I would ask him. I would take the initiative and say, because I think right now you're sort of following him, waiting for him to make the move. You're scared. Fair. That's totally fair. Uh, I think if you want it to happen, you would need to ask, 'cause it's not clear from these cards that he is going to make that move. Yes, it does make sense. Zoe says, "I don't think he's thinking I would ask him." Yeah, maybe you do. Maybe you say, "Hey, do you have any plans on February 14th?" Right? "Wanna go wanna go do something?" Okay, so Setema Mitena? Setema Mitena. Great. Hi. Selama Witena. Sorry, I wrote down your name wrong. Selama Witena. Welcome. You are welcome to post your question in the chat. Okay. So Selama asks, "I have been jobless since October. What will the rest of February bring?" I'm so sorry to hear that. The job market is rough. All right, so we'll lay down 3 cards for the rest of February. We're looking to see what that month will bring, and, hopefully, we'll see something to indicate a job. Okay. Okay, let's see what we can find here. And so for anyone who might be joining, my name is Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. I've been doing free readings today. I've also started doing paid private readings. You can find a link to book a reading in the description of the video. Um, I'm over my 3-hour mark today, so um, my list is not currently open, but I would love to read for you in the future. Um, Sarish Tiarora, for example, I'd love to read for you in a future live stream. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll be more easily able to see when I have live streams scheduled. And then I do them on a first come, first serve basis. Okay, so Salama, let's see the rest of February. Okay, Temperance, King of Cups again, the Magician, and Temperance is looking at 7 cups. Okay, so the court card here representing you, Selema, is King of Cups, hitting someone who is absolutely trying their best. 7 cups is, I think, referring to your unease with the whole situation. Anyone who's been out of work understands what that feels like. I've been there myself, at times, and, it's a difficult feeling, knowing that you're prepared and ready and capable, and yet, the opportunity is not presenting itself to you. So, you've got that feeling, and you're trying to be flexible, you're trying to find balance, you're trying to figure out a way to measure up to this, uh, and I imagine you are, like, obsessively looking for work with Temperance, right? And maybe you're a little bit, feeling like you're pouring things back and forth from one cup to the next, trying your best, and trying to figure out the best way to show off your skills and, all the, um, capabilities that you have as a professional. But the question, sort of implied question is, will there be a job by the end of the month? And with these cards, I I would think it's not clear that there will be, right? For a new job, I would want to see, the ace of batons. I would wanna see an increase of coins if we saw coins here, uh, and they were going up, maybe even, cups. If we saw an ace of cups or cups increasing, indicating, like, something fulfilling was growing, that would be great to see and could potentially indicate, a new job. Um, why don't we look at the surprise card and see what that gets us? The surprise card is the Fool, and so here, um, the Fool is walking along. Fool is moving forward, uh, but the Fool isn't necessarily someone who, just got a new job, you know what I mean? So, for the next, like, 3 weeks or so, 'cause what's today? The 4th, um, and, the other thing I'd say is this isn't destiny, this isn't, fate, this is the direction of things as they are in this exact moment. It doesn't mean, that it can't change because everything in life is always subject to change. So, I wouldn't say there's no hope, um, but I would say in the next 3 weeks, um, you should continue to a apply to everything that you possibly can, try your best, and with the Magician here, you know, sometimes you have to be a little tricky or work a little magic to get things to go in your favor, and so I would consider trying some of that out too. I wouldn't lie, it's not the devil, right? But, with the magician can maybe, um orchestrate or choreograph things in a particular way that can help them get what they want without out and out lying, devil would. So you're very welcome, Salama, and I wish you all the best of luck with your job search. I know how hard it is, to find a job, especially right now. Okay, so I am Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, and I've been live streaming today and doing free readings. I'm over 3 hours, and I have got to wind it down and call it quits for this evening. Uh, I offer paid private readings, starting very recently, and if you're interested in one of those, you can check out the link in the description of the video for information about how to book one of those. If you're interested in a free reading in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel so that you can click and see more easily when I have scheduled a live stream. For those of you that I was able to read for today, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for being polite in the chat and asking your questions and participating. I really appreciate it. For anyone that I was not able to read for today, I'd be happy to read for you in the future. My live streams, I've organized them so it's first come, first serve. And so whoever shows up in the chat first and requests their reading gets their reading first, and then I move on down the list as it goes. So that is going to end my live stream for today. Again, I'm Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. Thank you all so much. Be kind to each other, be well, and I will see you all next time. Bye, everybody. Have a great evening.